A young girl named Sophie, around 10 years old, lives in an orphanage after losing both her parents. She suffers from insomnia, wandering the halls at night while the other children sleep. Like them, she fears the stories whispered about the dark streets, rumors of an old man who appears at night, kidnapping children and eating them once they disappear. One sleepless night, Sophie hears a faint cat's meow outside. Thinking a stray might have knocked over the trash cans, she steps onto the balcony to look. But instead of a cat, she sees something impossible, a giant hand reaching from behind the building, setting the trash bin upright. Moments later, a towering figure emerges from shadows. Terrified, Sophie darts back to her bed, but it's too late. The giant has seen her. He stretches his massive arm to the window, captures her, and disappears into the night. The giant moves stealthily, avoiding human eyes. When people approach, he hides himself beneath darkness or mist. Carrying Sophie, he slips through a hidden passage between worlds until they arrive in the land of giants, a strange realm where everything is enormous. His home is vast, tables as tall as trees, jars the size of carriages. Sophie, frightened but curious, tries to escape, only for the giant's deep voice to boom. There is no way out. You cannot go anywhere from here. Startled, Sophie realizes he is an old giant, placing her on a frying pan. He mutters hungrily, "I am feeling much appetite." Sophie panics, believing he means to eat her. But as she hears distant laughter from other giants, she asks in fear, "Are there others like you?" The old giant nods gravely. "Yes, but they are man-eating giants. They feast on humans. They take no pity. Any human they catch, they devour raw." Sophie trembles. "Will you eat me too?" she whispers. The old giant shakes his head. "No, I do not eat humans. I am a vegetarian giant. I live on vegetables, though they taste foul to me." His words bring Sophie a little comfort. She begins to see that this old giant is kind-hearted, different from the cruel ones outside. "Then why bring me here if you don't eat people?" she asks. The giant sighs heavily. "Because you saw me. If you told others, humans would come and destroy us all. To keep my kind safe, I had to take you here. Now, you must stay with me for the rest of your life." Sophie protests. "No, I'll escape somehow." But the old giant warns her, "Never try. The others will smell you from miles away. They would never spare you." Saying this, he gently sets her on a board and tells her to rest. But sleep doesn't come easily to Sophie. Watching the giant, she notices him pulling large glass bottles from his bag. Inside, something glows and shimmers. "What are those?" she asks. "Dreams," he replies. "I collect them." Sophie frowns. "Then they're no use to me. I don't dream. I can't even sleep." The giant smiles faintly and picks up one of her storybooks, reading aloud in his rumbling, gentle voice. The sound lulls her, and soon her eyelids grow heavy. While she sleeps, the giant carefully opens one of his bottles, releasing a soft golden mist, a dream, over her. But the dream quickly turns dark. Sophie sees herself running, chased by a huge, terrifying giant who catches her and swallows her whole. Gasping, she wakes with a scream. The old giant blinks awake, too, startled. "It was you," she accuses. "You gave me that nightmare." The old giant nods sadly. "Yes, I had to show you how dangerous my world is, so you'll understand why you must stay hidden." He explains that the other giants are far bigger and fiercer than he is. "I am small compared to them, an old pygmy, they call me." As if to prove his point, a massive shadow fills the doorway. One of the other giants, enormous and scarred, ducks inside. "Pygmy," he growls. "Who were you talking to?" The old giant stiffens. "No one," he answers quickly. Sophie hides behind a pile of vegetables as the newcomer enters, his wounded hand dripping with blood. The smell of a human catches his nose, and his nostrils flare. "I smell something tasty in here," he snarls, sniffing around the room. Sophie freezes. Desperate, she slips into one of the giant's vegetables, hoping to mask her scent. But the huge intruder, drawn by the aroma, picks it up. This smells strange, almost like human. He brings it toward his mouth. The old giant shouts, "Stop! You never eat vegetables, remember?" The big giant frowns, then laughs gruffly. "Ah, yes, I'd forgotten. Filthy greens." He tosses it aside, and Sophie tumbles out, gasping for breath but unharmed. The intruder grumbles something and lumbers away. As the echo of his footsteps fades, Sophie looks up at the old giant. "Where are you going now?" she asks as he gathers his bottles again. "To work," he replies. "It's time to collect more dreams." And with that, the gentle giant steps out into the starry night, leaving Sophie to wonder what kind of strange magic and danger she has stumbled into in the world of giants. The old giant tells Sophie, "I must go out for urgent work." Curious, Sophie asks what it is. He hesitates, but when she presses him, he finally admits, "I am going to capture dreams." Fascinated, Sophie begs to join him. The giant refuses at first, fearing what could happen if the other giants, who were sleeping nearby, were awakened and saw her. But Sophie insists again and again until the gentle giant finally agrees to take her, warning her to stay quiet and hidden. Outside, the night is vast and silent. The other giants lie sprawled across the ground, snoring heavily. Sophie and the old giant try to move past them, but just as they are slipping by, all the giants suddenly stir awake. Their booming voices echo through the valley. "Pygmy," one bellows. "Where are you going?" The old giant answers calmly, "I'm going to my work." The others grow suspicious. "We don't want you going out into the world of humans. If they discover us, our lives will be in danger," they thunder, surrounding him menacingly. The old giant keeps his composure, pointing to the sky. "Look, clouds are gathering. It's going to rain." The other giants recoil immediately. They fear water more than anything. When raindrops begin to fall, they grunt and retreat to their caves for shelter. Seizing the moment, the old giant and Sophie escape quietly into the open. They journey through misty valleys and climb high mountain ridges. As they rise above the clouds, Sophie gazes at the night sky in awe. "The stars look so beautiful from here," she whispers. The old giant smiles. "I can hear them too," he says softly. "I can hear everything. The songs of stars, the whispers of trees, even the footsteps of ants." Sophie stares in disbelief. "That's impossible," she says. The giant replies gently, "It's true, little one. You must believe it." Soon they arrive at a shimmering lake surrounded by tall, glowing trees. A great tree stands beside the water, its branches heavy with luminous droplets that drift slowly downward like falling starlight. Without hesitation, the old giant jumps into water, and Sophie leaps after him. Together they swim to the other side and enter the world of dreams. Here, dreams float like living fireflies, some bright and joyful, others dark and restless. The old giant begins capturing them in glass bottles, each one glowing with color. Sophie helps him, and together they collect both good and bad dreams. By the time they finish, they have grown close, laughing, talking, and sharing stories as friends. As they rest, the giant sighs and says, "All the others call me Pygmy, but once someone called me something better, the big friendly giant." Sophie smiles and says warmly, "Then that's what I'll call you too." Carrying their bottles, the big friendly giant and Sophie travel to the sleeping city below. Moving silently through the streets, they peek into bedroom windows. The giant opens the bottles, releasing good dreams into the air. The dreams drift toward the children, wrapping them in happiness as they sleep. Watching this, Sophie realizes how kind and gentle her companion truly is. "Did your parents teach you about dreams?" she asks. The BFG shakes his head. "Giants have no parents," he replies. "We've existed since the dawn of the universe, hidden behind walls that keep us from humans." She asks his age next. The giant chuckles. "As old as the stars," he says. "We were created when the universe was born." As dawn approaches, they begin the long journey home. But then Sophie suddenly gasps, "My blanket! I left it back in your world." The BFG's face darkens. "That's a problem," he says gravely. "If the others find it, they'll know a human is with me." His fears prove true. By now, the man-eating giants have already caught her scent. Sitting quietly, the BFG shares something painful. "Years ago, I met another child, a boy. He was clever, kind, and he saw me just like you did. I brought him here, and he taught me how to read. The jacket you wear belonged to him, but before I could return him home, it was too late." His voice trembles. "I won't let the same fate befall you, Sophie." He decides to take her back to the orphanage for her safety. Sophie protests tearfully, begging him not to leave her. But the BFG shakes his head. It's too dangerous now. He gently sets her down outside the orphanage and walks away. Moments later, Sophie leaps in the balcony, trusting that he will catch her, and he does. Cradling her safely, the BFG realizes he cannot abandon her. "You're as stubborn as you are brave," he says with a sigh. Relenting, he brings her back to his world once more. But trouble awaits. The other giants have gathered, angry and curious. They've already smelled the trace of a human from Sophie's blanket, and now demand to see her. "Where's the human pygmy?" they roar, stomping around and smashing his furniture. Quick thinking, the BFG burns Sophie's blanket, destroying the scent. "There's no human here," he shouts. The giants grumble and eventually leave. Once they're gone, Sophie notices a portrait of a queen hanging on the wall. A bold idea sparks in her mind. "Let's make a dream for the queen," she says. "Show her the truth, that giants exist and that they're eating children. Put both of us in the dream, so when she wakes, she'll know who we are." The BFG considers this and nods. A clever plan, little one. Together, they craft a dream, images of terrifying giants, of innocent children, and of Sophie and the BFG standing before the queen. That night, they travel silently to the royal palace. The BFG tiptoes to the queen's window, opens a bottle, and releases a dream. The golden mist drifts toward her bed, swirling around her sleeping form. Moments later, she begins to dream exactly what Sophie imagined, of giants devouring children, of a little girl and a kind giant trying to stop them. When morning comes, the queen wakes in shock, her heart pounding. She calls for her attendant and recounts the terrible dream. The attendant soothes her gently, saying, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. It was only a nightmare." But deep down, the queen cannot shake the feeling that what she saw might be real. The next morning, the queen reads a newspaper and exclaims in shock, "Something strange has happened. Many children disappeared from their homes last night, just as I saw in my dream." Realizing the dream was real, she orders, "Draw the curtains." When the curtains open, Sophie stands on the windowsill, just as in the dream. The queen gasps in disbelief. Sophie explains everything about the big friendly giant and pleads, "Please promise me you won't harm him." Moments later, the big friendly giant steps forward respectfully and bows deeply before the queen. Keeping her word, the queen welcomes him kindly. Despite his noble presence, the BFG's speech is clumsy and jumbled. He mispronounces words like human being, often saying something entirely different, which amuses everyone around. The queen laughs warmly and invites them both to a grand breakfast. Over the meal, Sophie and the BFG reveal the full truth about the other giants, how they roam the world at night, kidnapping and eating children. Alarmed but determined, the queen vows to stop them. She summons her army and prepares a detailed plan. With the BFG's help, they board helicopters bound for giant country. Once there, they position themselves strategically, ready to strike at dawn. The BFG's role is to deliver a special dream to the sleeping giants, one that fills them with guilt and remorse for their terrible deeds. But as the operation begins, the BFG realizes he has forgotten his dream-blowing trumpet, the tool he needs to release the dream safely. Sophie bravely volunteers to deliver herself. She sneaks toward the sleeping giants carrying the dream jar. Just as she's about to open it, the leader of the giants stirs awake and reaches for her. Thinking fast, Sophie smashes the jar, releasing the dream mist into the air. It swirls around the giants as they sleep, and they begin to murmur and twitch, haunted by the images of the children they've harmed. All but the leader feel remorse. He wakes in rage and lunges at Sophie. At that moment, the BFG intervenes, but the monstrous giant seizes him in one massive hand and begins to crush him. Before he can strike, helicopters descend in the clouds. The queen's army has arrived. Soldiers fire nets and chains, subduing every giant. Bound and captured, the giant are flown to a remote island surrounded by endless ocean. Their greatest fear. They are left to live out their days, far from humankind. The queen ensures they have food seeds to grow vegetables, even though they despise the taste. It is their lifelong punishment, to survive on what they once hated most. In the aftermath, Sophie no longer lives in the orphanage. The queen invites her to stay in the royal palace, where she is safe and loved. From her balcony each morning, Sophie calls softly, "Good morning, BFG." Far away in giant country, the big friendly giant hears her tiny voice, for he can hear every sound in the world, and smiles as he tends his vegetable fields. And so, the two remain connected across the distance, their friendship as vast and magical as the dreams they once shared.